Moving on here on the right stand, Prime Minister Narendra Modi is in Washington on a crucial two-day visit to the United States. He was welcomed by the Indian community at the Blair House. This marks his first visit with President Donald Trump coming back into power at the White House. And ever since the latter has returned to the White House this January, is the first big visit, and it's upon the invitation of Donald Trump himself. A power-packed schedule awaits the Prime Minister. PM Modi will be meeting the US President at around 2:35 a.m. later tonight. So Thursday night, Friday early morning Indian Standard Time, 2:35 a.m. Followed by a press briefing at around 3:40 a.m. And at 4:10 a.m., Donald Trump will be hosting a dinner for Prime Minister Narendra Modi. So there will be a continuous rolling coverage overnight here on CNN News 18. At 9 p.m. India time, Prime Minister is expected to meet the NSA, Michael Waltz. And at 10 p.m. Indian Standard Time, Prime Minister Narendra Modi is expected to meet Elon Musk, and at 10:45 p.m. IST, the Prime Minister is expected to meet Vivek Ramaswamy. So all these meetings and engagements before Prime Minister Narendra Modi meets President Donald Trump. Now, US President Donald Trump wrote on a social media platform, Truth Social, 3 great weeks, perhaps the best ever, but today is the big one. Reciprocal tariffs make America great again. The post comes ahead of his meeting with Prime Minister Modi, who is in the US for a 2-day visit. Now, Make in India and Atmanirbhar Bharat. These will be the big agenda in the Bharat-US talks. That's what sources close to government are telling CNN News 18. Our national security, they are also given to understand that at the NSA level talks in Washington, D.C., the focus will be on defense ties between the two nations while giving Bharat's interest topmost priority. This time around, NSA Ajit Doval is actually traveling. So ever since there was the court litigation that opened up proceedings on the Pannu matter and they wanted to question Ajit Doval, that was during the Biden administration, now Ajit Doval is actually traveling to the US. So clearly there is a shift in the entire equation and the posturing. But will that yield results? That's the big question. What's on the agenda? Our Security Affairs Editor Manoj Kumar Gupta getting us more details. The idea is actually to strengthen Make in India with new technologies. Government sources have further said that the Indian side is very keen to buy technology which can serve Make in India. Major deals are expected during this, which will be beneficial for Bharat in the long run and satisfy the joint manufacturing push that's being made by Donald Trump. So beyond just the trade and the tariff aspect of it, will there be other aspects, the security aspect, the defense aspect? Professor Salvatore Babones, American sociologist with us, Dr. Anand Ranganathan, author, political commentator and scientist with us, and Sushant Sareen, Senior Fellow, ORF, with us. My namaste to everybody. Thank you very, very much. Professor Babones, my first question to you. Two leaders who are interested in making their nation great. So there is MAGA and Make in India, two objectives. Are they able to work together? Will they be able to come together to find common ground? They're great friends, but is it possible for these nations to work together, or will there be a clash of intent, aspirations?
It seems to be relatively easy for nationalists to work together because they understand each other. Now, by that, I don't just mean Narendra Modi and Donald Trump, but really strong nationalists of all stripes seem to be able to come to a mutual understanding that each one realizes that the other one's looking out for his or her own country, and they're comfortable with that. They're okay with that. So if you saw, even when Donald Trump in his first administration was dealing with someone as difficult as Kim Jong-un, they could understand each other even if they disagreed. Now, Narendra Modi is going to be much easier to get along with than Kim Jong-un, and we saw that during Trump's first administration. There just isn't that much of a problem because both of them expect the other to want to preference their own side. Both of them expect the other to be tough negotiators who want what's best for their own country. And this is crucially important,
right,
both of them want to get along.
So two leaders who want to get along, so they're going to come across onto the table. Sushant Sareen, there are two objectives, both of them wanting to further their nation's interests. They have great equations. So let's take this conversation forward. What is it that Bharat can offer as a bargaining chip, the upper hand? Can we push on the defense deals? Can we also look at somewhere certain connections on security improving? Because America needs Bharat here in this region if we need to counter China.
Anand, I think both America needs India and India needs America. I don't think we should get into this zero-sum kind of an approach. I think both sides need each other, and I think there is a understanding on both sides that there are a lot of convergences which need to be built upon. Now there will be certain issues between any two big countries. Tariffs is a kind of a bee in the bonnet of President Trump. So yeah, he's going to be a little obsessed with it. He's going to demand something. I'm sure there is a lot we can do about it because some of the tariff regimes in India are kind of really weird and wacky, and unnecessarily protectionist, because we also need to become much more competitive. So just raising these high tariff walls doesn't really work very well for our industry as well. And to some extent, yes, there will be some areas in which we will resist. If Mr. Trump wants to impose certain tariffs, fine. But what can we do about it? So I think we also need to be a little thick-skinned about how things are going to go. But look, his other the other bee in his bonnet is on trade deficits. On that, again, the convergence is, for example, if he wants to drill, then we are willing to buy oil wherever we get it cheaper. How does it make a difference? One. So we kind of bring down the trade deficit with him. What Trump needs to understand is that, look, you can't have a balanced trade with every country in the world. There will be some imbalances. And India's imbalance of trade with the US is not of the predatory nature like it is with China.
Right.
So what we can do is we can increase our imports on a range of issues. So, for example, the technological imports that we make from the Americans.
Right.
There's a lot of defense trade which is taking place. Perhaps India can become a kind of a defense production base for some of these companies, which works well for the Make in India thing. It works well as defense sales go for the US, and India can become a kind of a sector for supplying some of the other people, who take American stuff from India. There are a lot of workarounds to ensure that this relationship keeps moving forward. But I think on the strategic domain, on the political domain, on the ideological domain, things are looking up. And last but not the least, a lot of people want India to interfere in this whole Russia crisis. But I think the Americans and the Russians are sorting it out themselves. If the president is talking to Mr. Putin, and there is clarity of the sorts we have not seen over the last 3 years in the United States, that look, what has happened in Ukraine, just too bad, it's terrible, all of that is fine. But it's a given situation and there's nothing that can be done about it. So learn to live with a bad situation, which works well for us.
Right. Professor Babonis, just quickly, just getting before I go across to Dr. Ranganathan. Professor Babonis, tariffs, will they become the deal breaker, deal maker here? Are both leaders better prepared? Do they know each other better now, better prepared?
It's an important point to raise that Trump 2 is not Trump 1. Now, everyone knows that the Trump 2 administration is very different from the Joe Biden administration that we just ended. But it's also very different from Trump 1 because Trump 2 is an unequivocal, no apologies Trump administration. Trump 1 was still more or less under the control of the Republican Party establishment. And you can see that just by looking at the appointees. Just look at who Narendra Modi is meeting today, Tulsi Gabbard. Tulsi Gabbard could never have had a place in the first Trump administration. Now she's a key part of his national security staff. So that change means that the new administration really reflects entirely the mind of Donald Trump. Now, for some people, that's very scary. For other people, that's very exciting. It depends on your politics, but it does change the calculus. It means that international leaders who are negotiating with Donald Trump know that they only really have to please one person, and that's the president. They can be pretty confident that if they strike a deal with President Trump, they won't have to run the gauntlet of his security advisors and his people in Congress who want to hold things up. And the leash is off, as they say. And so dealing with Donald Trump is dealing with Donald Trump for good and for bad. He's the only one you have to please.
And if these two leaders, like you said, they want to talk to each other, they want to make things work, and the art of the deal is Donald Trump's way of, I think he's penned that book. So he's always looking for the deal. Can Bharat give that deal, which makes it sweet for both sides, Dr. Ranganathan?
Good evening, Anand, and good evening to my fellow panelists. I think there are two issues here. I speak as a layman. Number one, there is no two ways about it. The US is our vital trade and security partner. Unfortunately, because historically our foreign policy was shackled by obsolete Nehruvian thinking, we've had a cagey relationship with the USA, but things are on the bend. More than 34% of Indian stock market assets are American investments. Indo-US trade has surged from $16 billion in 1999 to $201 billion now, double of French-US trade. And for a change, India has a trade surplus with US of 50 billion, although China has a trade surplus of 300 billion. So I think as far as Trump is concerned, China is a bigger quote-unquote enemy than India right now. So India would be acting as a buffer compared to what China is as far as tariffs are concerned. Nevertheless, NASA and ISRO are partnering. We have sent 200 American satellites into space. Our science collaboration is very strong. There is talk of building nuclear reactors together. Energy is a sector where both nations are looking to collaborate heavily. I think time has come for us to realize we are what we are going to be because of hard power and not soft power. We must demand returns from Trump whenever he negotiates. A Security Council seat should be put on the table, no question about it. Now to the second issue. Higher taxes, runaway national debt, hounding wealth generators, unchecked mass illegal immigration, unabated stifling of free speech, labeling, cancelling, unbridled wokeism and social engineering. I am talking of not India but the USA. America is broke and broken, and that is why Trump managed to convince majority of Americans, the blue-collared and the working class, the Latinos and the blacks, through promises that are quite frankly straight out of the socialist cookbook, if not the communist manifesto. Protectionism, high tariffs, trade renegotiations, quotas, in short, an American license Raj Indira Gandhi would have been proud of. A quick glance, Anand, at Trump's executive orders, and one thing is crystal clear. This time round, Trump is even more virulently America first, more virulently anti-globalization, and more virulently anti-Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. He is choosing tariffs over talent, and therefore, although in the short run this will help America because through protectionism and tariffs and quotas, Trump will create more jobs for Americans, more domestic growth and setting up of factories and lower imports. In the long run, protectionism and high tariffs will result in what they've always have. Resulted in a socialist trap that ultimately destroys a country's economy through less choice for consumers, outdated technology, increasing friction with countries, and higher prices because of lack of competition and rule of monopoly. Remember Ambassador cars and Camp-Cola? So we need to think carefully as to how India can traverse this tricky journey for the next 4 years, especially because finally we are seeing the face of new India. It's taken 10 years for Modi dispensation to stand up to Western bullying and to expose the hypocrisy on Ukraine. We have to stand up, Anand.
Right, we have to, and this is someone who's from his political lexicon, it's about protectionism, but he himself is a capitalist. He's only looked at expanding his business interests across the world, and he's a builder. So will then socio-capitalism somewhere come as an equation? Exactly what Bharat is also trying to do. Professor Babon, is one question. In Trump 2.0, there are a lot of Indian origin members. Also, there are a lot of Hindus. So the overall perception is that Trump 2.0 is far more favorable to Bharat. Is that a fair assumption to make?
First, let's be absolutely clear. Hindu Americans are Americans. They are not Indians. They may have Indian origin. They may have a better knowledge of India than other Americans would, but they're not in any way going to show favoritism towards India. Now, simply having a better knowledge of India is a really important factor because most American presidents, the entire American foreign policy establishment is very light on India. They still view India through the lens of India-Pakistan. They still view India to some extent through the lens of the Cold War or what has become a new Cold War with China. And they don't view India as a one-on-one relationship for the United States. Now that is changing, and the Indian Americans and Hindu Americans in the Trump orbit will play a key role in changing that and helping inform America. So I don't
Right.
think India should look for any favoritism to come out of that, but a more sophisticated U.S. policy towards India, a U.S. policy towards India that realizes that India is not just a big rising market or the next global
Right.
superpower, but that India is a country with interests, with its own foreign policy, with its own democracy.
Right.
That is something that
Well,
is, I think,
I'm just
going
going to
lead
take
a
30
slightly-
seconds. I'm just going to take 30 seconds more here because we're going to have Jagdambika Palji and we'll have to move closer home on the domestic politics front. But Sushant Sareen, one big box that you would like ticked in this Trump-Modi meet in favor of Bharat?
No, I don't think there's any one thing which I put
Right.
my finger on, but I just want to join issue on this whole tariffs thing. Look,
Right.
tariffs, there has to be a balance in tariffs. If tariffs are too low, you destroy your own industry. If they're too high and too protectionist, you again destroy the competitiveness of your industry. So tariffs have to balance. Now, you can't have that
Right.
the Americans have absolutely zero tariffs or very low tariffs, and other countries have tariffs which give a disadvantage to American industry, which has got deindustrialized.
Right.
They can't even goddamn produce face masks, right?
Right.
We saw that during COVID. They
Correct.
couldn't produce anything anymore.
Correct.
So I think there is something in what Trump is trying to do.
Huh.
Maybe he will overdo it.
Huh.
And maybe he needs to be told not to overdo it. And if that happens, it's a victory for us.
Okay.
To the extent it was hard on China, great for us.
Right.
But I think we also need to, wake up, smell the coffee, and do certain reforms of our own so that we can benefit from the new dispensation in the United States.
Right. Thank you. Thank you very much, gentlemen. Well, let's just go across to Jagdambika Palji.